Boys and girls. I'm happy to be here with you, and I wanted to teach you a little bit more about the United States history. Today I'm going to share with you a couple sections of this book, The Founding Fathers, Creators of the United States by John Malcolm. And the genre of this book is, of course, nonfiction. And if I wanted to go further, I would say the genre is also United States history. It's a fact book. The sections I'm going to read to you today are Ben Franklin, Birth of a Nation, and the Continental Congress. And as we go through these, you've probably studied some form of note-taking. If you wanted to, this would be a great opportunity to do some kind of a mind map with the topic in the middle, so one of these headings, and then some lines out with a main topic and then some details. Or you could just jot the heading and then put a couple details under each one. This is a great way to practice for lectures as you get older, and in distance learning, it's really easy as the teachers talk at you and kids can't whisper around because you're in your own space, to take some notes. So I hope you'll join me in thinking about this, and I'm going to read it like this, and then of course I'll show you the pictures. Introduction. Their names and reputations have made history. George Washington, James Madison, John Adams, Alexander Hamilton, Thomas Jefferson, and Benjamin Franklin. These are some of the men who shaped one of the greatest nations on earth. They are the founding fathers of the United States of America. The story of the founding fathers of the United States is one of determination against the odds. The founding fathers were determined to break free from the grip of a colonial power, to create a new nation, by the people, for the people. This is their history. I have another book about the women in this time of history also, and I hope to share that at some point. So there are women involved. Founding fathers. To found means to start something, to be the first person. That's why they use the word creator here. I always think of like foundation for a house. You need a strong foundation for a house to build a house that's going to last. Same idea. That's why these people have withstood the test of time, is because the foundation they built for our country has lasted. Okay, that's no small feat. Benjamin Franklin. One of the most important of the founding fathers was Benjamin Franklin from 1706 to 1790. He was a statesman, diplomat, writer, scientist, and inventor, and one of the most talented men of his time. A leading figure in the struggle for independence from Great Britain, Franklin helped draft the Declaration of Independence and was one of its signers in 1776. He represented the U.S. in France during the American Revolutionary War from 1775 to 1783. Signed the Treaty of Paris that ended the war, 1783, and was a delegate to the Constitutional Convention, which created the Constitution of the United States, a document Franklin also signed in 1787. At the age of 81, Franklin was the convention's oldest delegate and had been hailed as the first American. Benjamin Franklin is one of the most important Americans ever to have lived. Either write something worth reading or do something worth writing, attributed to Ben Franklin, which means he might have said that, but he might not have. And I'll read that quote again because it's kind of cool. Either write something worth reading or do something worth writing. He is a most extraordinary man. William Pierce, a member of the Constitutional Convention, describing Benjamin Franklin. So here's an image of him older in life. And he was a tremendous inventor. There are things like the Franklin stove. I believe the American postal system is attributed to him. It goes on and on and on. And in the meantime, he was part of all these different groups that supported our freedom. Birth of a nation. There are some dates in history that have changed the world. The 4th of July, 1776, is one of those incredible dates. On that day, the U.S. declared its independence from Great Britain. It was a giant step towards becoming an independent nation. However, Britain was not going to let its North American colonies go free without a fight. The draft Declaration of Independence is presented to Congress, presenting the document from left to right. And I think you're going to need to see this. John Adams, Roger Sherman, Robert Livingston, Thomas Jefferson, and Benjamin Franklin. Okay, so there they are, presenting it. Okay, I'm going to read this piece next. The 13 colonies. By the mid-1700s, about 2 million people lived in Great Britain's North American colonies. There were 13 colonies stretched along the eastern seaboard of North America, south of present-day Canada. The colonies were ruled by Britain from Britain, and for many people in the colonies, that was a problem. To them, they were Americans, and Britain was a foreign country, far away, that had no right to interfere in their affairs. The colonies grew restless and rebelled in Massachusetts. As a result, the British government sent its army to restore British control. Over here, there's a map of the 13 original colonies and when they're founded. And since we've already done colonial reports, I'm going to let you look that up on the internet, but you could also get this book. The Revolutionary War. On April 19th, 1775, British troops were stopped by armed American patriots near Concord, Massachusetts. The British ordered the Americans to lay down their arms, but they refused. It's not clear who fired the first shot, but it was the shot that started the American Revolutionary War. This was a bitter war fought over 6 years between Great Britain and her American colonies. Declaration of Independence. As the war entered its second year, American politicians began talking about independence, freedom from Great Britain. At first, some colonies did not want to break away, but after more talks, they were all in favor, and the Declaration of Independence was adopted on July 4th, 1776. This day later became known as Independence Day. Britain surrenders. Both sides had victories and setbacks during the Revolutionary War. But by the autumn of 1781, British forces were besieged at Yorktown, Virginia. The war ended on October 19, 1781, when British troops surrendered to General George Washington. 2 years later, on September 3, 1783, a peace document known as the Treaty of Paris was signed, and the Revolutionary War officially ended. The 13 colonies had gained their freedom from Great Britain, and they became the first states in a new nation, the United States of America. And here is the Declaration of Independence, and it's so hard to get a good view for you guys, right there. You can look this document up online and see all different images of it. It's very important. And an early version of the U.S. flag with 7 red and 6 white stripes and 13 stars in a blue field. The stars represent the original 13 states. So this is an early version of the American flag. And we're going to read the last section now, Continental Congress. Before the first shot was fired in the American Revolutionary War, a different kind of war was raging between Great Britain and her colonies. It was a war of words between politicians from both sides. The word war united the 13 colonies against Great Britain, and from it emerged strong leaders and the first signs of a national or federal government. American patriots disguised as Mohawks and Native American people throw 342 chests of tea into Boston Harbor. Road to the Revolution. In 1767, many everyday goods in America began to cost more because the British government added a tax onto them. Americans protested and people stopped buying British goods. In 1770, Britain scrapped taxes on all goods except tea. The tea tax was unpopular, and in 1773, chests of British tea were thrown into Boston Harbor, Massachusetts, by American protesters. The British government was outraged by the Boston Tea Party, as it was later called, and passed laws to punish Boston, called the Coercive or Intolerable Acts. The present unhappy state. For many Americans, Great Britain had gone too far. It was bad enough to be paying tax to Britain, but the presence of thousands of British soldiers only made matters worse. American newspapers and pamphlets called for independence from Britain. In September 1774, delegates from 12 of the 13 colonies came together for the first Continental Congress. Only those from Georgia stayed away. The meeting, held in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, was called to consult upon the present unhappy state of the colonies. A British officer being harassed by colonial boys in Boston. I'm going to stop for a moment and show you this page because I think it's really interesting, and it's always so hard to get a good image. So you can see the British officer and the boys, and you can see the people getting together. And yeah, here's the Boston Tea Party, and then over here. And I'm going to read this page next. The colonies' demands. After 7 weeks of talks, the British Continental Congress ended, and the colonies made their demands to Britain. The colonies wanted British troops to pull out of Boston, and the Coercive Acts repealed. Until that happened, the colonies refused to trade with Great Britain. They made a plan to meet again in 8 months if the British did not meet their demands. Britain refused the colonies' demands and sent troops to end what was seen as a rebellion in Massachusetts. Common Sense, Colin, addressed to the inhabitants of America on the following subjects. And it goes into the different pieces of the Intolerable Acts. Common Sense, Tom and Paine's pamphlet published in 1776, inspired people in the colonies to declare independence from Britain. So basically they used propaganda to motivate the American people to protest the British rule. Put into a state of defense. The Second Continental Congress went ahead as planned in Philadelphia. In May 1775, all 13 colonies were represented, and this time there was a war to discuss because the first shots in the American Revolution had been fired that April. Right away, Congress agreed that the colonies be immediately put into a state of defense. Plans were made to raise a continental army of 20,000 men, with George Washington as its commander. The Declaration of Independence was drafted at the Second Continental Congress. Strong leaders emerge. The Continental Congress met at different towns throughout the 6 years of fighting. Powerful leaders emerged, including George Washington from Virginia, Thomas Jefferson from Virginia, Benjamin Franklin from Pennsylvania, Patrick Henry from Virginia, James Madison, Virginia, and John Adams, Massachusetts. These and others were to become the founding fathers of the United States. Congress appointed George Washington as the commander-in-chief of the Continental Army. And I'm going to show you this picture again because I think the images help solidify your ideas. So you can see a lot was happening in the early Americas, and we have found out a little bit more about Ben Franklin, who you can research. He is totally fascinating and quite funny at times. Has a lot of quotes attributed to him. The birth of the nation. So we were looking at what caused us to want independence in the first place, and then the Continental Congress and their contributions to the Declaration of Independence and the pamphlets that were sent out to motivate Americans to want to leave the British rule. Next, we'll do another 3 sections on another day. I hope you have some good notes to share, and thank you for listening. Bye.